if you don't know my name, that's okay. In fact, in some ways, you don't have to know any of our names, the people who are up here, because this whole thing is not about us, it's about Ray. I came to Cal State LA in 1987 as Dean of Graduate Studies and Research, and I came from a relatively well-known research and teaching university. And the first thing, actually, the first day where I reported to work, I was enthusiastic, of course, and the associate VP at the time, vice president at the time, said, okay, we're going to the academic senate. And I said, oh, okay, if that's what we're supposed to be doing, let's go. I'm not a member, my position was not a member of the academic senate. This is basically about how Ray Garcia saved my academic sanity. That's, okay. So it turns out that sometimes, and of course you have this among students, among faculty, in their departments, et cetera, but sometimes things get a little bit tedious in discussions. And that particular day, the academic senate, for me, again, having come from a place where there was no academic senate, so it's basically going night, day, or day, night, whichever you like, it really seemed a little tedious. And I'm thinking, these are my colleagues, and I remember a few people particularly who have since passed on, and I wouldn't mention them anyway, but it seemed tedious. And all I could think of was, beam me up, Scotty. That's all I could think of. And of course, since then, I have gotten to know many of the people who are here in this audience, the senators, they've served as senators, and it's, of course, a very effective and functional, necessary part of the university, particularly a university like this. But I went home that evening kind of despondent. It's like, did I make the right decision? You know how this is with a new job, you're never quite sure. So what happened was the next day, thank God, into my office pops, jumps, yells, Ray Garcia. And he basically saved me, because in that hour or so that we had, of course he was there since at that time at least there were funds to help support research, research faculty, research for students, and things like that. He was there, of course, to basically make my acquaintance, but also to, of course, help separate me from some of the funds that I might have that might go in his direction. And I basically got to know Ray, and what he told me, what he showed me, just by being Ray, and that's the important thing. We've heard this from every speaker here. Ray basically just was himself. He was so genuine and sincere. That's what you saw. And what he showed me, of course, was his abilities in terms of research, of course, but basically the way he really cared for students. And one of the reasons why I came to Cal State LA from that other place that I was at was the night when I was being interviewed. That evening, various people were taking me to dinner, which is normal kind of stuff. And as we were walking off the campus, there were all these people, all these students who had worked all day, coming, in fact, in this direction. And they were going to spend their evening doing something else, trying to get an education. And when people are excited about that, when people are committed about improving themselves, that motivates the heck out of me. And that was what was clear in Ray. He basically saw the same thing in all of you, and students, and all, of course, colleagues, including at least one administrator, who was very turned on and very, very helped by Ray. Ray was the kind of guy, like was said, you just don't know who you're going to run into, who you think you're not influencing at all, but you do. And Ray was one of the first faculty members among a long list since then, of course, colleagues who I've learned a lot from, and from students. And finally, the bottom line is that I would like to say, because I'm sure this is, many other people want to talk, say something. The bottom line is, for you students, of course colleagues know this, but for you students, remember that you, in fact, excited Ray. You motivated Ray to keep going. You motivated Ray to his deathbed to keep going. And all I can say is he motivated at least one administrator, and my life is much better for it.
Hi everybody, my name is Edgar Perez. I was a former student of Dr. Garcia's. Many of you know me, many of you don't, but you probably see me, running up and down from bio to Lacrette's every morning because I work there in the animal care department. Just a few words I want to say. Dr. Grover and many professors mentioned some of the great qualities that Dr. Garcia had, and one was that he was very open, and he allowed students to be open with him. And that is so true, I believe, because I'm a living example of that. I met Dr. Garcia in 2012. I mean, I didn't meet him. I was actually in CCM for 4 years, so I already knew him before then. And my first impression of him was when I went to go get a paper that he had to like sign or he had to write on, and his penmanship was so neat. His handwriting was amazing, and I was like, oh my god, I wanna write like that. So sometimes I would stand there trying to like copy his writing or his lettering, but I can never do it. And then in 2012, I became part of his lab as an undergrad, my last year, and I had such a great experience. He taught me a lot throughout that year. He didn't really know me so well, but he began to know me. And I remember one time we were conversating, and I don't know, we were gonna go to I believe Buca de Pepo for Christmas party that he does every year for his lab, and I said, and throughout the conversation, I mentioned that I didn't know how to drive or that I didn't have a car. And I remember he would say, "What do you mean, guy? What do you mean you don't know how to drive? How old are you? You're supposed to know how to drive now. That's the only way you can get around LA." And I said, "Oh my God, sorry, Dr. Garcia, but I don't know how to drive." And I believe at the time I was like 23, 24 years old, a couple years ago. And Dr. Gore mentioned that he allows students to be open with him, and I decided to be open with him as well. And I went up to Dr. Garcia and I said, "Dr. Garcia, I wanted to tell you something. I wanted you to know the reason why I didn't have a license, I didn't know how to drive, because I wasn't a documented student, and I still am. I'm a dreamer, as people would say." And that's when he said, "What? Oh no!" And he started telling me a story. Correct me if I'm wrong. The family that they had a gardener, I believe, and he was also undocumented, and he was young, and he would do the gardening work for them, and how much he admired his work, and how much later on he told me that he eventually got married and he went back to Mexico. So he gave me a sense of understanding that he knew where I was coming from. He knew why I was in this situation. So I believe that that's a good example as to why students are so open to him, and he was so approachable. He was so culturally diverse. He had so many experiences, and anybody from any different background just will go up to him and talk to him about any issue they had, whether it be a class or personal or life issue. So yeah, he was a great guy in that sense. Also, I want to say that later on the DREAM Act passed, and I was able to get my driver's license and my work permit. And the moment he found out I got my work permit, the next day he's like, "They're hiring upstairs in the animal care department. You're in my lab. I need somebody to take care of my bunnies. You should do it." And I said, "Okay, Dr. Garcia, I'll do it." A bit overwhelming, but I thank him so much. This is just one example. He helped me out throughout other times as well, and I thank him for offering me the job. I've been in the animal care department for around 2 years now, and it's been such an amazing feeling to have a job. He encouraged me to get my driver's license too as well. So I am happy to say that this year, past summer, I got my driver's license in a car. So yeah, for me. But it was his encouragement, his advice, his motivation that allowed me to do all those things that I was afraid to do first timer, right? And which is one of the reasons I'm able to speak to you in front of you guys right now, because I'm really nervous right now. I also like to say that he, in terms of energy, a lot of professors mention a lot of his energy, and it's so true. I will always say he puts us master's students, no matter how young we are, into shame, because he was always involved in meetings, and he was a professor, and he was part of CCM, and then he would stay here until 2 in the morning. Sometimes we'll be like studying in the hallways, and we'll see him walking up and down and still working. And I'm like, it's 2 in the morning. What is he doing here? Oh my goodness! And he has such an amazing energy. We can barely keep up with 2 classes. He has like a whole list of jobs he had, and that's where we got our sense of motivation. We always say, if he can do it, why can't we? We're younger. Come on, we can totally do this. So he encouraged me a lot to continue my research, continue to be a great student. He motivated me a lot to be a master's student, and I joined the master's program for that. That's one of the reasons initially, was because I took Dr. Grover's biochemistry class and I loved it, so I chose biochemistry as my major of choice. And I just continue learning from him. I cannot say how much more because we'll be here all day, but I just had such a great, amazing experience knowing him. And there was two things he told me in two separate occasions. They were exact same quote. One was when I was gonna do my interview for the job that I took as an animal care department, and the other one was when I was gonna before I did my prospectus, when I joined Dr. Moman's lab. He told me how great his lab was, and in both of those occasions, it was like they were a year apart. He said, "Don't mess it up, guy." And I said, "Okay, Dr. Garcia, I won't mess it up. I promise." And there was ups and downs. I admit a lot of them were my fault, but he encouraged me to continue to work hard. There's times where I feel like it's too overwhelming, but I always remember him encouraging me, telling me to keep going, no matter what. Life is just a weird game, I would say. It was great being his master's student for one quarter. Then unfortunately the news came and I had to switch labs to Dr. Moman. But at that time, in that quarter, I wasn't on top of the world. My research was going well. I knew his research from top to bottom, so the project he gave me was almost a piece of cake, but it was going to take me some time. I got my work permit. I had a job. It was just perfect. And then life has a very weird way of turning things around. And literally in that quarter, I had to switch labs. I had to relearn a whole new material. Dr. Moman has helped me so much with that. Now I'm doing bioinformatics. I did lipids and my cell construction before. Now I'm doing bioinformatics, total different thing. And now I am just regaining that energy again. And it's been such an awesome experience. I thank God and thank the time I had with him, for meeting him, for knowing him, for the encouragement he gave me. And he will always tell me stories of how he believed that students like me, should continue with education, no matter what obstacles. And I believe that I'll be living proof of that. So I thank him a lot, and thank you all for being here, and thank you for hearing me, even though I'm a little nervous. Thank you.